Episode 1 of The Last Frontier starts at Alaskan Air Force Base in Alaska. Armed guards are dotted around the airstrip as a dangerous inmate is brought on board a diverted prison transport. This inmate is a guy called Havlock, and it doesn't take long for things to go badly wrong. Despite being hooded, masked and with chains all around, he manages to break free from his binds just after an explosive rips the hull of the plane apart. Flying over the Alaskan wilderness, inmates fly out the plane to the ground below. But those who are left on board, as the plane stabilises at least, fight back against the guards. The plane eventually crash lands in a frozen field, but it's absolute carnage. Over in Fairbanks, Alaska, we catch up with Frank here. He's a local deputy at the station and in the process of sorting out a cabin for his family, including wife Sarah and son Luke. However, he's called away by news of this crashed plane. Together with officers Hutch and Donnie, Frank takes a chopper up north to check out the crash site. As they circle, they find the plane in a rough way, and one of the deputies is still alive. He whispers the word ambush just as a bunch of inmates jump on them. They catch the deputies unaware and a scuffle breaks out. Unfortunately, Donnie winds up stabbed in the gut several times and they're forced to flee back to base, scrambling back on the helicopter. News of this crashed plane reaches the CIA headquarters at Langley though. Senior agent Jackie Bradford speaks to a colleague and decides to bring Sydney Schofield on board. She knows about the mission and appears to be part of this Atwater protocol. It's here we learn that this mission with the plane was run as a black op. The division determined a JPATS transport provided optimal cover, and they used this prison transport to pick up Havlock, the dangerous inmate we saw earlier on. With him released, Griffin has no choice but to get Sydney back in the field. Back in the wilderness, Frank organises traffic and realises that this JPATS crashing is just the start of their problems. They need to get these inmates back quickly, and that includes setting up a perimeter and a command post, along with informing the nearby hospital and town of Fairbanks that they've got trouble coming their way. That trouble is coming from different directions though, because Griffin sent Sydney out to Alaska with Frank, the intention being to try and get a handle on things. The thing is, Frank is starting to realise that this isn't so simple, given the unscheduled stop and the danger that Havlock poses. Alongside Havlock, there are another 17 inmates out in the wild. They need to bring them back ASAP. The DOG are actually pressing for an audit of all passengers here, but Frank has his own set of questions, like how this covert operation bypassed protocol and how Havlock is part of all of this. And Frank confronts Sydney about the secret she's keeping and how it could actually kill them if she's not forthright with him. The speech seems to do the trick, and we learn a bit more about Havlock here. And 3 years back, rumours started to swirl surrounding a mole in the CIA. This person was an ideological defector selling state secrets. Their motivation was to destabilise and destroy the American government. The guy's intel was so damaging that the DOJ launched a task force to find him. However, this person is actually a bogeyman created by the CIA as part of a covert operation dubbed the Atwater Protocol. The agency created a handful of defectors who leaked intel in order to draw out enemies so they could be terminated. One of these people was Levi Taylor Hartman, aka Havlock. And Sydney was in charge of training this guy in weapons, language and flat out butchery. For the last 2 years, Havlock has used intel to lure out and dispatch targets. But last month he disappeared. 2 days back, Havlock was captured along the Sino-Russian border, and the CIA was bringing him home when the plane crashed. Now whatever Havlock has planned, this jailbreak is clearly only step 1. Frank is convinced that Havlock had help here, stemming from someone on board that brought the explosives that crashed the plane. But who could that be? Unfortunately, Donnie's injuries are too severe and we learn that he's passed away, while Luke, Frank's son of course, sneaks out from the school's lockdown and heads up to the cabin we heard about earlier with his girlfriend Kira that night. An SOS signal is broadcast out from a tower south of Vinity. It doesn't look good, especially as this could be Havlock's handiwork. Zeb Weber is an old dog driver here, a hermit even by Alaskan standards. He shacked up in a cabin 20 miles from the crash, where this SOS signal came from, and it means Havlock has got there in record time. Unfortunately, with a radio and a whole bunch of sled dogs outside too, Havlock has everything he needs to escape. Now when Frank and the other officers show up, Havlock ambushes them. A couple officers are killed in the skirmish, while Havlock holds Zep up at gunpoint, and Sydney wants Frank to fire, but the Alaskan wants a more diplomatic solution. However, it doesn't take long for things to escalate, as Sydney cuts one of the dogs loose and it bites the guy's neck. Only, there's a problem. It turns out the guy that's been bitten isn't actually Havlock, it's someone else. The pieces then slot into place as we get the truth of what's been happening. It turns out the officer from earlier that survived the crash, well, it's actually Havlock in disguise, posing as a federal officer, while the real officer was killed and dressed up in prison gear. Unfortunately, Frank's partner Sarah is the nurse in charge of this guy's care in hospital, and she walks right into a trap. When Frank shows up, Havlock is gone, and so too is Sarah. Now Havlock sabotages the radio tower next, causing cell service and internet to go down completely. Frank is livid and tries to sever ties with Sydney, refusing to work with her, given the lies she's been keeping. Now Havlock gets in touch though and blackmails Frank into submission, leaving everything wide open for the next episode. So The Last Frontier gets off to a decent start, with solid editing, some great action and a simple but effective premise. In a way, this actually feels quite reminiscent of the Fox series The Hunting Party, and it'll be interesting to see whether this takes on a similar episodic format by going after the inmates one by one, or if this Havlock character is going to take centre stage. Either way though, The Last Frontier has a solid premise, and while the concept has been done before, I mean, Prison Break seem to be all over the place in media right now, the way this is playing out does feel a little more unconventional, keeping things interesting. You can already feel the friction between Sydney and Frank, and it's likely this will be explored deeper in the episodes ahead. It's still a little too early to judge this one completely though, but so far this Apple series seems to be on the right track. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.